Okay, we call this country dance. So what used to happen then was that when school was on in rural America, it was winter. In the fall, first you harvested everything. And then when bad weather happened up in Montana, bad weather is pretty dramatic, especially in western Montana and the Rocky Mountains, you go to school. And in the spring, when it finally thaws and you can plant seeds, all the kids are on the farm doing that and school's over. So a much shortened school year. So we're going to graduate from the 8th grade, me and the other 7 kids. And there was a huge difference between being in school in Helena with a population of at least 8,000 and Willow Creek with a population of 60 or something. Now, surrounding ranches and farms, there were several hundred people, but all the kids were in this one building. So I don't believe Willow Creek had a graduation for the 8th grade ceremony, but there was a little town on the other side of the nearest mountains that had some kind of a dance planned for their gymnasium, and it combined 8th grade graduation and senior high school graduation. So there were these 2 girls, and puberty hit me like just a brick wall when I was about 12, and I discovered women. So I somehow got up the courage. There were these 2 girls in our class, and there was one that was really well built and shapely and beautiful, and her name was Betty, and I asked her if she'd go to the dance, and for some stupid reason she said okay. And I had a friend named Rodney, and he asked the other girl, whose name I don't remember now, and she said okay. Now, my dad had this 1932 Chevrolet pickup truck, which was at the most a 2-passenger pickup truck, because we were in the milk hauling business. We collected the milk in 5-gallon cans from all the ranchers around and took them to Three Forks to a dairy, and that supplemented his income in addition to what we could do on the 165-acre ranch. And we were all horsepower, no tractors or anything for us. And so he agreed that, I mean, I've been driving since I was 10, so he agreed that I could take the pickup truck for the 4 of us to go to the dance. So it was still winter. There was snow and ice on the ground. It was freezing. It could have been March, maybe early April. So I picked these 3 up, and I had Rodney in the car first, and then we got Betty. So Betty was beside me in the front seat. And in the 1932 Chevrolet, or all of the cars of that time, there was a big gear shift rod right in the middle between the 2 passengers. And it had a little knob on the top, and you would shift into 1, 2, and 3, which was forward or reverse or neutral, and it was an H pattern. And it had a clutch and a brake and an accelerator and a floor-mounted starter, which was a big thing then, instead of cranking the engine. And so that was our vehicle. So I didn't realize, but when this radiant 14-year-old girl, very fully formed woman, got in the pickup truck, she actually was forced to sit next to me so that her body was against mine. It was so narrow, and when Rodney got in, she just squeezed her over, and I couldn't get any further to the left, but I was kind of centered on the steering wheel and the floor pedals. And I'd never felt it. I'm an only child, and I'd never been around a young woman, much less body to body. And breathing the way she smelled and the lustrous skin and hair and how warm she was. And I just lost the slight, tenuous hold I had on sanity. I was gripping it with my fingernails, and I was gone. And we're in this 2-rut filled dirt road going over the hill to the next village to the dance, bouncing up and down and swerving around ice and snow and puddles. And when we got Rodney's girl, she had to sit on his lap or in the back of the truck. So it was on his lap because it was the only place that was warm, freezing out there. And so we get to the dance. And everybody that came to the dance had a pickup truck, and they all had guns in them like mine did, my dad's. And they all had whiskey under the front seat like ours did. And so you go in the gymnasium, and they've kind of tried to make it a little bit romantic, and there's some, I don't know, tassels or something. And down at one end, under the basket on that end, is this, I think, three-piece country band. I don't know. I don't know what it was. Maybe drums and guitar and keyboard, piano or something. And those guys knew maybe a dozen songs they thought kids liked, a dozen at the most, 3-minute songs. And they would play those, and then they would play them again. And then they'd take a break and go out and drink. And then they'd come back and do the same thing again. That was the evening. That's how it was structured. And some of the lights were turned off, so there was an attempt to make it more romantic than a basketball game. Now, I didn't know how to dance, and I didn't know how to talk to her. I didn't know how to do anything. I'd never been with a woman. And my mother had never taught me anything about women. She was a duty-structured mother, but mostly involved in nursing. And in those days, nurses were 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week. And she was a nurse boss, so it was even harder. So she didn't have much time. And no sisters and no women friends. And so I was clueless. And I'm not sure how much Betty knew about how to spend a dance evening, a romantic. I believe we didn't drink. The four of us didn't. We didn't drink any of my father's whiskey. But everybody else in the dance seemed to. And they were all kind of amorous. And Rodney was amorous with his girl. So eventually it's time to get in the truck and take everybody home. And Rodney's kissing his. And I'm trying to figure out how to kiss Betty goodnight. And I remember just trembling with anticipation and fear. Had no clue what it meant to try to kiss a woman. I may have touched my mother's cheek once or twice, but she wasn't a very demonstrative woman, and I didn't know anything, and so no idea. And at that time, I don't know where you would learn to kiss if you had no teacher. Not in film. I didn't go to those kinds of movies. Cowboy movies in Helena, and no movies out in Willow Creek. So eventually we get to Betty's, and we walk up to her porch, and I might have muttered thanking her, but I just didn't have the courage to try to learn how to kiss her on the lips. So I ran back to the pickup truck. And now this is almost the end of the 8th grade and graduation. I don't believe Betty ever spoke to me again after that night, and I don't blame her. And I took Rodney's girl home, and I'm just furious with myself. I'm bouncing around trying to get home so we can go out and pick up all the milk. And I run right off the road. I cross, I think, the Jefferson River and on a bridge, and then the road turns to the left. And I turned before the road did and ended up the nose, the grill, front bumper is what the pickup truck is standing on. I have to go wake up a rancher, and we get his horses in a harness and come out and pull the pickup out. And I get it home, and my father's sitting there. What the hell? And maybe some of the oil has even run out of the engine, so I have to confess. And frankly, that was the end of my experience in Willow Creek. I left and went to Helena and found a place I could board, and I could go back to Helena High School and start in the fall, and I did. And spent 4 years at Helena High. Different story. Eventually, a high school girlfriend, Pat. Now, today, of course, none of you can grasp what our struggle was then in the Dark Ages, because there was no way to learn how to interact with a member of the other gender at all. I mean, it's nothing like today, where there seems to be everybody's running around with these handheld video devices and pornography and blah, 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 blah. Several hundred channels broadcasting everything about sex and love and passion and frustration and blah, blah, blah. Silence then. Nothing for little boys or little girls. And so ignorance was a problem. Also, World War II, all of us knew we were going to go in the military and the army and die. There was no question. We were all going to go and die. And it was kind of romantic, and the girls felt they were obligated to encourage us and give us a photograph so we could have some reason to come home to her. And so it was romantic in that sense. It was all kinds of going away to war songs on the radio and movies and so on and so forth. Now, we all went in the military and we were all gone forever, and so the girls, many of them, some waited, but many didn't. So what really became famous then was Dear John letters. And that explained why she had ended up with someone else. And there you are, and you've got your photograph of her, and you're in this hole, and somebody's shooting at you, and now you've got nobody to go back to. A somewhat stressful period. Again, there came to be a point around 1943, 1944, when we realized we probably were going to win. We weren't going to lose. We were never attacked. We were the only member of World War II protected by these two giant oceans, and our enemies just didn't have the time to fight all the other wars they were in and somehow attacked us. So we had all of these years to develop into this superpower and develop this massive military capability and industrial capability. And yet we had to go deeply in debt to do it, but that was never, it was either you don't survive or you go in debt. And we knew how to print money, and we had a whole bunch of gold buried in a hole in the ground. So I've perhaps told you my country dance story. Now, I don't know where we're going to go with this series. I'm still trying to learn to program quarter hour instead of half hour. And I think I should talk more about relationships and less about political systems and economic. But as I speak to you with the election campaign of 2012 just beginning, this is about January 10th, 2012, so the presidential campaign is now on, and the future looks very dark for most of us. We can't find jobs to earn enough money to meet the basic needs of our families. So we have over 100 million people really poor in America now and being thrown out of their homes and no hope of employment. And so it's a desperate time. So we can talk about how to fix that, or what happens when women are both taking care of the family they create and earning enough to support it, and he's out of work for the rest of his life. You pick. Email Hannah, womansview@AOL.com. Thank you. Bye.